Hi guys, I thought I would do an update on the Wuhan virus, and as well as talking about how Asia is actually overwhelmed by 4 plagues at the moment, which I think will interest a lot of you because I have received some comments about the plague of locusts in Africa as well and how serious that is in terms of how it might potentially cause a famine. So let's look at all of this, and I also want to be talking about how this flu shows up, why globalization is such a bad idea. So according to the New York Times, they have now admitted that the fatality rate of this flu, it is 2.3%, which is quite strange because they said at the outset when there were only about 100 cases and very few deaths that they were going to be, the fatality rate would be around 2.1 to 2.5%. It stayed at that the whole time. But this is actually far greater, almost 20 times greater than the normal fatality rate for flu, which is actually 0.1%. So that shows you that while flu every year is definitely a killer, this is killing at a higher rate than the normal flu. So as you guys will have noticed, the non-Wuhan Hubei numbers for new cases has been going down every day quite dramatically. There were only 140 cases in Hubei, not including Wuhan. The number of cases in Wuhan remains fairly steady, up a bit, down a bit, but it hasn't radically declined. In the rest of China, the non-Hubei cases in China are falling flat. In fact, we're reaching the stage where there are going to be more cases on the cruise ship, well, providing they aren't all released tomorrow, than there would be in the whole of China. So that's kind of strange as well. What's also interesting is that the fatality rate in Hubei is 7 times higher than the fatality rate in the rest of China. So there does seem to be a problem with the Chinese numbers, and I know an awful lot of us are very skeptical of the numbers coming out of China, particularly because they're very eager to get the economy back on track and get everyone back to work, because they had their spring festival, so it was kind of okay for people to be quarantined during a period of holiday when a lot of people were away from university or work anyway. But now they're eager to get everything back online. So the cases in the rest of Asia are rising exponentially. For example, South Korea had 20 extra yesterday. Japan had 10 extra reporting yesterday. So very big growth. But you notice in the rest of the world, the numbers have hit a brick wall. Australia rapidly climbed to 15, but they haven't recorded another case. Canada climbed to 8, haven't recorded another case. America is stuck on 15, but I believe they're up to 700 people in quarantine in Washington state who are being monitored. So America seemed to be taking this view that they are monitoring people rather than actually testing them. Therefore, they don't have to disclose the numbers. So what about the fatality rate? In terms of male and female, kind of equal. 30% of people dying in their 60s, 30% in their 70s, 20% over 80. There are virtually no children getting infected. There was news in these 20 South Korea cases, I think, that there was a child involved of under a year. Otherwise, pretty uncommon for the kids to be getting it. In terms of the economics, Apple are already warning of problems with their products because, as you know, Foxconn and Shenzhen assemble Apple products, and so there's going to be a problem in that supply chain if everyone doesn't get back to work. Do you realize that nearly all the pharmaceutical components are made in China? So while India makes 70% of the world's pharmaceuticals, the component parts are made in China. We are enormously reliant on China for antibiotics, even for the making vitamins and for the making these essential parts in pharmaceuticals. And I think this again highlights how we've allowed ourselves to become totally independent on a nefarious regime in China, a communist dictatorship regime, all because of greed and globalism. This whole idea of globalism, as you see in its epitome in the EU, is where every country specializes. Like France gets the agriculture, Germany makes the cars, London gets financial services. But with every country specializing, while that may be seen as a good thing because it's always good to play to your strengths, what it means is every country is totally reliant on other countries. And we've all, as a world economy, become totally reliant on China for our car parts, for refrigeration parts, pharmaceuticals, you name it. We are dependent on them. If a major crisis hits in that country, as it could easily, what if they collapse like the Soviet Union? What if there's a revolution to finally overturn the regime? All these things could happen. Plus, there are always numerous illnesses. SARS broke out there. The bird flu virus breaks out there. We're putting our future in the hands of not only a regime that has a poor human rights record, but that maybe can't guarantee continuity of supply because of these outbreaks. So you can see there's every reason for China to try and crack down on this as hard as possible. I believe Land Rover in the UK are very worried post-March that they'll be able to meet their production targets because of parts. In China, they culled 100 million chickens because lack of transport means they couldn't, get feed for these chickens. The Tokyo Marathon has been closed now to ordinary entrants. Only the professional athletes will take part to keep numbers down. So another example of how this is affecting the world. I believe some studies are now saying that because of something called a cytokine storm, which you can look up, cytokine is spelt with a C, Cytokine. If you get this virus the second time, it can be far, far more deadly because of the scar tissue on your lungs and because of the way it attaches to the T cells and it compromises your whole immune system. So what they're saying now is that this could recur year after year and get more dangerous. So we could be potentially looking to another outbreak as winter arrives end of 2020, which could be more deadly. Interesting to me that Russia is closing the border totally tomorrow. They'd already closed their land border, but from tomorrow they are not issuing work visas, travel visas, or study visas to people in China. So they're cutting down on tourism and everything from China. So Russia are taking this really seriously, which they wouldn't be if the real numbers coming out of China were this low or declining as quickly as they can. I mean, it went up exponentially and then it's kind of flatlined, and soon I think in most of China we won't be even getting new cases. So we've seen with the ship, the Diamond Princess, how absolutely contagious this is in close quarters when people are locked up. But while the situation on the ship is such, it's like that in every workplace, in every large building. You've got air circulating with air conditioning, people crammed in to offices, sitting there all day long, breathing in germs, breathing out germs. It's the same thing. Public transport systems like trains or tubes are even worse because they're so much smaller. So, when we see how quickly it spreads on the ship and how many people are actually asymptomatic for very long periods, then you know that the potential spread is crazy. So I don't know where this is going to go, but I just wanted to chat to you about some of the things that are going on and to say, well, of course, I said in my prediction there would be a plague in China, but it wouldn't, sort of spread to the rest of the world. But of course, we're watching this eagerly. We're going to see. So when they say the death rate for this coronavirus is 2.1%, that's 1 in 50. And on another broadcast, it's called something prosperity, peak prosperity. The guy said, if someone said to you, you've got a 1 in 50 chance of winning the lottery, you would be taking a lottery ticket a couple of times every day, wouldn't you? So when they say you've got a 1 in 50 chance of catching this, I mean, it's not to be joked about, is it? Apparently in America, a lot of people who are asking for the test are not getting it. If you haven't got a recent travel history to China or an obvious connection to a person who's maybe come from Wuhan or China, they wouldn't necessarily be testing you. I just wanted to end off by saying that Asia is currently overwhelmed by 4 plagues. So we all know about the Wuhan virus, but 2/3 of China's pig population have been affected or lost due to the African swine fever, which has no cure and no vaccine. Once one pig is infected, the entire herd has to be killed to prevent it spreading because it's really bad. So prior to its outbreak in 2018, about half the world's pigs lived in China. But now pork prices are soaring because the herds in Cambodia, North Korea, as well as China and Vietnam have been devastated by this swine flu. So and while this African swine fever can't be transmitted to humans, its counterpart, H5N1, the bird flu, can. And according to the Daily Mail, China's recently reported seeing an outbreak of a highly pathogenic strain of H5N1, which has already killed 4,500 chickens, and it's forced Chinese authorities to cull over 17,000 chickens. And according to the World Health Organization, human cases of H5N1 avian flu are not uncommon, and when they occur, the mortality rate is about 60%. So there you go. It's a perfect storm happening in China. And on top of all this, China is also suffering from an outbreak of H1N1 swine flu, which has spread to 100,000 people in Taiwan, and 13 affected people died within the space of a week, according to the CDC. So there's a lot of strange stuff going on in China, and all these diseases are kind of being proliferated. It's really worrying what's going on. So I hope you enjoyed the update. Just wanted to briefly look at the stats, some of the economic news coming out of it. I mean, this could be economically devastating for the rest of the world. It could just be the excuse they're looking for to collapse this whole Ponzi scheme that is the world economic system. You know, it's unsustainable, the economic system we have. Like I say, it's a Ponzi scheme. It's going to collapse. We're on the brink. Could this be what tips it over the edge and leads us into a financial crisis that a lot of us that listen, well, a lot of you guys that listen to this channel have been expecting, and of course we are expecting it with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, that this whole current economic system could be brought to a crashing halt. And it's exactly this kind of thing going on in China that could tip it over the edge. And just to say, I was listening to a guy the other day, and he was saying that while the money supply, the M1, M2, and M3 money supply keeps increasing, the money velocity is decreasing. It means that there's no trickle down. All the money is just going to the top, stuck in the banks, stuck among the wealthy financiers. It's not trickling down. There's major problems in the financial sector. They just can't plug the gap or fix the hole. It's out of control. So in a way, this could be the perfect excuse for a massive worldwide depression, and I can always blame it on the Wu flu.